10 Reddit confessions that will give you nightmares. A friend you've known for years casually admits to watching you sleep, not out of concern, but obsession. An online confidant you've poured your heart out to reveals they've been manipulating you from the start, just for their own amusement. These aren't tales about ghosts in the attic or monsters under the bed. The horror in these stories comes from the ordinary people you think you know, your neighbor, your friend, your roommate, and the darkness lurking just beneath the surface. These anonymous posts from the darker corners of the internet feel so chilling because they could be true. They happen in familiar places, bedrooms, friendships, and late-night DMs. Today, we're exploring 10 stories presented as confessions that reveal the kind of psychological horror that hides in plain sight. They show us that sometimes the most frightening monsters are the ones who look just like us.
The roommate who watched. Let's start with a story that attacks the one place you should always feel safe: your own home, your own bed. It's about a breach of trust so profound, it turns the sanctuary of sleep into a stage for a silent, secret audience. The user writes, "I lived with my best friend, Sarah, for 2 years after college. We were inseparable, or so I thought. Our apartment was small, but it was ours. It felt safe. That feeling shattered the day she moved out. We were packing her last box when she said it, so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. 'You know,' she began, not even looking at me, 'I'm gonna miss watching you sleep.' I laughed, thinking it was a joke. A weird joke, but a joke. I asked her what she meant. Her expression didn't change. She explained that for the entire 2 years we lived together, she would often wake up in the middle of the night and come into my room. She'd stand in the doorway, sometimes right next to my bed, and just watch me. For minutes, sometimes for over an hour. I asked her why. My voice was barely a whisper. She just shrugged. 'I don't know,' she said. 'It was just interesting. You're so still when you sleep, so peaceful.
You talk sometimes too, little mumbles. It was like watching a secret version of you.' She admitted it wasn't about making sure I was okay. It was a habit, a private hobby. She treated this horrifying violation not as a betrayal, but as a quirky nighttime activity. I helped her carry the last box to her car, and we said our goodbyes. I've never spoken to her again. To this day, I can't sleep without a lock on my bedroom door. The idea that someone you trust could turn your most vulnerable moments into their private spectacle is a nightmare I can't seem to wake up from."
The next story moves from the physical space of a home into the digital world, where anonymity can be a shield for some of the most disturbing forms of cruelty. Some of the most unsettling stories found online aren't about physical violence, but about the cold, calculated emotional destruction of others. This next post comes from someone who admits to a kind of psychological predation that feels uniquely modern. "For about a year, I had a secret hobby. I would browse forums for people who were feeling hopeless, depressed, or even suicidal. But I wasn't there to help. I was there to do the opposite. I'd create a persona, a sympathetic friend who understood their pain. I'd spend weeks, sometimes months, earning their trust. They'd tell me their deepest fears, their reasons for wanting to give up. I became their closest confidant, the only one who truly understood. And then I would start to poison them. I'd subtly agree with their darkest thoughts.
You're right, I'd say. The world is a cruel place. I understand why you feel like there's no way out. I would take their vulnerability and twist it, using their own words to build a logical-sounding case for their despair. My goal was to see how far I could push them, to see if I could be the one to tip them over the edge. It was a game, a power trip. The anonymity made it feel like it wasn't real.
One person, a young man who had lost his job and his family, was my masterpiece. I had him convinced I was his only friend. He told me he was planning to end his life on a specific date. I didn't try to stop him. I encouraged him, telling him I understood and that he would finally be at peace. The day came and went. His account went silent. I have no idea what happened to him. For a while, I felt a sick sense of accomplishment. But now, years later, the weight of what I did sits with me. I never hurt anyone physically, but I know I may have guided someone to their death, all for a fleeting sense of control.
From the cold distance of the internet, our next story brings the horror much closer into a friendship that is not what it seems. The obsessed friend. Friendships are built on trust, but what happens when that trust is a one-way street? What if, to your friend, you weren't a person, but a project, a subject to be studied with an intensity that borders on obsession? I was obsessed with my best friend, Mark. On the surface, our friendship was completely normal. We played video games, went to parties, complained about work. He thought I was his closest friend. He had no idea that I was his biographer, his archivist, his secret historian. It started small. I'd memorized details from our conversations, the name of his childhood dog, his favorite movie as a teenager.
The creepiest part was my fixation on his private life. I knew where he kept his spare key. A few times when I knew he'd be out of town, I let myself into his apartment. I never took anything, I just walked around. I'd look through his mail, read a few pages from the book on his nightstand, check his fridge. I just wanted to be in his space, to absorb the details of his existence. He once joked that I knew him better than he knew himself. He had no idea how right he was. He saw a friend. I saw a life that was more interesting than my own, and I was its most dedicated and invisible fan. Some secrets are kept for a lifetime. Others are revealed in the most mundane moments, turning a normal conversation into a memory of horror. The family confession. There are family secrets that are whispered about for generations, and then there are secrets that are dropped into a conversation with the weight of a bomb, spoken as if they were nothing. This story comes from someone whose mother casually rewrote their family history over dinner. My mother and I were having dinner a few years back, just a normal Tuesday night. We were talking about my childhood, and I mentioned how I used to love sleepovers at my grandmother's house. My mom got a strange look on her face and said, "You know, it's a good thing I never let you sleep over at my mom's house." I was confused. I had plenty of memories of staying with my dad's mother, but none with hers. I'd always just assumed it was because she lived further away. Then my mom, as calmly as if she were passing the salt, told me the story. When I was about 6, my maternal grandmother had been begging to have me for a weekend sleepover. My mom had a bad feeling about it, a gut instinct she couldn't shake, and she said no. My grandmother got furious, screaming at her over the phone, saying she would regret it.
A week later, my mom went to her mother's house to check on her. She found her in her bed. She had taken her own life. My mom was devastated, but the true horror came when she found her mother's diary. The last entry was about me. It described me as rotten and in need of being dealt with. On her calendar, for the weekend she had wanted me to sleep over, she had written my name. My grandmother had planned to murder me. My mom told me this entire story with a matter-of-fact tone, like she was discussing a historical event that barely concerned us. I just sat there, my food getting cold, realizing that my mother's random bad feeling was the only reason I was alive.
A calm persona can be a mask,
hiding a past so dark it would change everything you thought you knew about a person. The next story is a chilling reminder of that. The quiet colleague. We all know someone who seems impossibly calm, the kind of person who never raises their voice. You might see them as stable, reliable, but sometimes that calmness isn't peace. It's a lid on a boiling pot. I worked with a man named David for 5 years. He was the office Zen master. While the rest of us were panicking about deadlines, David would just smile, sip his tea, and say, "It will get done." He was in his late 50s, had a wife, 2 grown kids, and a garden he was immensely proud of. He was the most normal, gentle person you could ever meet. One year, at the company holiday party, we were all a few drinks in. I ended up sitting with David at a quiet table. We started talking about our pasts, and I asked him what he was like when he was younger. He got a distant look in his eye and said with that same serene smile, "I was a very different person." Then he told me. He said that in his early 20s, he had a bad temper. He confessed that he had once been in a bar fight that ended with the other man in a coma. He was never caught. A few years later, in a fit of road rage, he followed a man home and waited for him. He didn't say what happened next, only that the man didn't bother him again.
He spoke about these events with zero emotion. No pride, but also no remorse. It was like describing scenes from a movie he'd once seen. He ended his confession by saying, "Then I met my wife, and I decided I didn't want to be that person anymore, so I stopped." He took a sip of his water and changed the subject to his garden. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. The man I saw as a pillar of calm was a dormant volcano. His peace wasn't an absence of violence, it was a conscious daily decision to suppress it.
We are halfway through our descent into the darkness. These stories remind us that horror isn't always about what's lurking in the shadows, but who is standing beside us in the light. If these stories are holding your attention and you appreciate this kind of exploration into the unsettling, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It ensures you won't miss the chilling stories still to come. Now, let's get back to it. The bathroom betrayal. Our sense of security is fragile. Sometimes all it takes is one small, strange discovery to shatter it completely. This story is about a betrayal of privacy so bizarre, it calls into question everything about the person the user thought they knew. My college roommate, Emily, was a bit odd, but I initially chalked it up to stress. The first sign something was truly wrong was the Tupperware container. She kept a large, opaque container on the floor of our shared shower. I never asked what it was for. It was weird, but I decided to ignore it. One morning, our other suite mate, Jen, came running into my room, looking pale. She told me she had slipped in the shower and accidentally stepped on Emily's Tupperware. The lid popped off. I braced myself for something gross, like old food or mold. The reality was so much worse. The container was filled with underwear, dozens of pairs, and they were mine. Jen had recognized a few pairs from my laundry drying rack. We both stood there in stunned silence. Suddenly, all of Emily's strange behavior clicked into place. The times I couldn't find my favorite pair of socks, the way she would sometimes stare a little too long. She wasn't just a quirky roommate, she was a thief, a collector of my personal items. The most disturbing part was the care she took. The underwear was all neatly folded. This wasn't a random act, it was a curated collection. We confronted her, and she completely denied it, accusing us of being liars trying to get her kicked out. We reported it to the RA, and she was eventually moved.
I had to throw away all of my underwear. I just couldn't shake the feeling of violation. The idea that someone was secretly hoarding pieces of my life right under my nose.
Some confessions don't come from a place of guilt, but from a place of pride, a chilling enjoyment of another person's pain. This next story is one of them. The joy of suffering. Feeling bad after you've hurt someone is a pretty basic human trait, right? Well, not for everyone. For some, a confession isn't a plea for forgiveness. It's a boast. My ex-boyfriend confessed something to me once that made my blood run cold. We were watching a movie where a character was being gaslighted, and I commented on how horrible it was. He just laughed. "That's nothing," he said. "I'm way better at it than that." I thought he was joking, but he proceeded to tell me with a disturbing sense of pride about his previous relationship. He said he enjoyed making his ex-girlfriend feel like she was going crazy. He would move her keys just to watch her frantically search for them. He would deny conversations they'd had, convincing her that she was misremembering everything. He told me he once convinced her that her birthday was on the wrong day. He wasn't confessing because he felt guilty. He was telling me because he was proud of his ability to manipulate someone so completely. He saw it as a skill, a testament to his intelligence. He described her tears and frustration with a small, cruel smile on his face. He found her suffering entertaining. That was the moment I saw him for what he was. It wasn't just a confession of past actions. It was a warning. His lack of remorse was the most terrifying part. It meant there was no limit to what he was capable of. He wasn't confessing a sin. He was describing a talent. I broke up with him the next day. I still shudder when I think about how much he enjoyed breaking someone down, piece by piece.
A joke can be a way to express a difficult truth, or it can be a mask for cruelty. The next story is about a prank that was anything but funny. There is a fine line between a prank and outright psychological abuse. This story comes from someone who was on the receiving end of a prank that was really about power and intimidation. My first year of college, I lived with 3 other guys. One of them, Alex, was the dorm prankster. His jokes were usually harmless, like hiding a textbook. But with me, it felt personal. It started with small things. He'd borrow my stuff and return it to the wrong place. He'd tell me I missed an important announcement that never happened. I thought he was just being an idiot. Then came the big prank. I had a major presentation I had worked on for weeks. The night before, I stayed up late perfecting my PowerPoint. I saved the final version to my desktop and went to bed, exhausted but prepared. The next morning, the file was gone. Not just the file, my entire computer had been wiped. My screen just showed a single grinning emoji. I panicked. I confronted Alex and he just laughed. "Dude, it's just a prank," he said. "Relax." He claimed he had backed up my files and would give them back to me after my presentation time had passed. He wanted to watch me fail. The prank wasn't about humor. It was about demonstrating his power over me. I had to go to my professor and explain what happened. I sounded like a child making excuses and ended up failing the project. Alex eventually found my files a week later, acting like he was doing me a huge favor. Our other roommates told me to lighten up, but I knew what it really was. It was a confession of his character, a demonstration that his amusement was more important than my success, my stress, and my sanity.
Some of the most devastating betrayals aren't sudden acts, but slow, meticulous campaigns of deception that span years. The hidden double life. A relationship is supposed to be a partnership built on trust, but for some, a relationship is just a stage, and they're playing a part. This chilling story was discovered, not told,
and it revealed a marriage was nothing more than an elaborate deception.
I'll never forget the night I found the hidden room. But power had gone out, and while fumbling for a flashlight in the basement, my hand brushed against a section of the wall that felt loose. It was a concealed door. Behind it was a dark, cramped space I never knew existed. The air was cold and musty. As my phone's flashlight cut through the darkness, my heart stopped. The walls were covered in photos of me. Hundreds of them. Photos of me reading in the park, grocery shopping, talking on the phone in my car. Some were from years before I had even met my husband. There were journals filled with his handwriting, detailing my every move, my schedule, my favorite coffee order.
I felt sick. This wasn't love, it was surveillance. Before I could process it, I heard him behind me. He was standing in the doorway, his expression eerily calm. "I knew you'd find it eventually," he said. He had been watching me for years before we ever spoke. He had engineered our first meeting. Our entire marriage was the final stage of his obsessive project. He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. The click of the lock was the loudest sound I had ever heard. He told me that now that I knew, he couldn't risk letting me leave. Our home had become my prison, and the man I loved was my warden. The confession wasn't spoken. It was built in secret in the foundation of our house.
Our final story is perhaps the most unsettling of all, not because of the act itself, but because of the chillingly casual way it was delivered. The casual killer. Sometimes the most nightmare-inducing stories are the quietest ones. The horror is amplified by the narrator's flat, matter-of-fact tone, which makes a monstrous act sound like a mundane chore. I used to volunteer at a nursing home, mostly just keeping the residents company. There was one elderly woman, a Russian immigrant named Anya, who I would often sit with. She was quiet and frail, and she would tell me the same sad story over and over about her husband who drank too much and was cruel to her. One afternoon, sunlight was streaming into the room, and everything felt peaceful. Anya was telling her story again. The drinking, the yelling, the fear. She finished, and then she paused. She leaned in close to me, so close I could smell the lavender scent of her shawl. She whispered, as if sharing a secret recipe. He was asshole drunk, so I pushed him downstairs. Dead. Then she leaned back, a small, serene smile on her face, and picked up her knitting as if nothing had happened. There was no tremble in her voice, no tear in her eye, no confession of guilt. It was a simple statement of fact. Problem, solution. An action taken long ago. A problem solved and then filed away. I sat there, frozen. This sweet little old lady who spent her days knitting had just confessed to murder with the same casualness she used to ask for more tea. It was a horrifying glimpse behind the veil of a seemingly harmless person. The confession wasn't the shocking part. It was the absolute total lack of feeling that came with it. A secret watcher, a digital puppeteer, a casual admission of murder. These stories strip away the comfort of the ordinary and expose the terrifying possibility that we never truly know the people we share our lives with. The horror is the fear of the hidden self, the dark thoughts that people nurture in silence, and the chilling realization that the line between a normal person and a monster is sometimes just a confession away.
Whether these are true confessions or masterfully crafted scary stories, they serve as a window into the hidden abysses of the human mind. They remind us that the world is filled with people who carry their nightmares inside them. And sometimes, they let them out. Which of these stories unsettled you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and if you made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe for more. Sleep well.